Welcome and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Taking Your Training Virtual, presented by Laurie Richards. Many of you know Laurie from media training and other sessions she has provided at our national conferences. Today's presentation is being recorded and will be posted on National Connections later today. You are welcome to submit questions throughout the webinar by using the question box located at the bottom of the sidebar. You may also raise your hand using the hand raise feature, and you also may minimize and expand the GoToWebinar sidebar by clicking on the red arrow in the top left corner. I'm going to now turn it over to our friend Laurie Richards to get us started.
Hi everyone, welcome to the session on how to take your training virtual. If you're like me, every day you're getting dozens and dozens of requests to go to webinars in some way, shape, or form. So this is a platform that we're likely to see around for a while. And in this session, you're going to learn how to take some of the techniques that you've been using in live training and turn them into techniques that really work in a visual format, in a virtual format. It's not as simple as just taking it from one to the other. You got to think about a lot of different things if you really want to keep people engaged, because keeping people engaged is a real challenge when it comes to webinars. What you don't want is this. Unfortunately, that's the way a lot of us feel, isn't it? Instead, what we're looking for is something more like this, where people are engaged and they're thinking about what you're saying and they're in really trying to remember and trying to retain your content. You want to make sure that you're building that attention. As we go through the day today, you're going to want to take advantage of some of the tools that are on what's on the right side of my screen. Actually, it says control panel, and you'll notice a couple of things. Jen mentioned to you that there's a question tab, and you can click on there and add any questions, and Jen's going to be watching that as we go through, and she'll let me know. She'll break in occasionally and ask us any questions that you guys have written. The other thing that's on there as you go down a little further is the chat button. Folks, take advantage of the chat button. This is an opportunity to not only learn from me, but it's an opportunity to learn from everyone. And that's one of the greatest advantages to taking training, for instance, in your ABC chapters, is that you put a lot of people in the room, and your best trainers will try to gather, not only share the information they have in their own heads, but they'll also try to gather the information from the group. So don't lose that opportunity simply because you're on virtual. Go to that chat button, click that open so that you can see it. And one of the options toward the bottom is it's going to say to. And what you want it to say is to all, the entire audience, and that will allow you to leave messages for anybody who's listening, so you can ask questions of them, or you can just have conversation. I don't like this, I do like this, I prefer this. You can also make that to all. You can make that to just me. Now, if you want a message to come to me as a question, go ahead and click that one that's up a little higher where it says questions. That allows us to really sort through and find the real questions. But if you've got a comment that you want just for me, like, wow, Laurie, your hair looks smashing, even though you've been in quarantine for 3 weeks. If you want to leave a message like that, go ahead and leave that in the chat box and leave it just for me. To that end, this is your first chance to learn from others and for us to share our knowledge. Go into the chat box and write what your pet peeves are when it comes to webinars. Just take a moment and throw in some pet peeves there. Start typing in there. I'll watch for what you're writing, and then we'll talk about some of those pet peeves, and we'll see what we can do about solving some of those in this very short webinar coming up. So take a look in there. Let's see what it says. So far, all I've got's a hi. So get in there. Got a lot of you on there. Get into that chat box. Again, it's on your right-hand side. There's a little arrow that says chat. Click on there and put some messages in here. Here it is.
Hey, Laurie, this is Jen.
Please.
I see some
yes.
I see some coming through on the question box.
Okay. Let's see. It says there is freezing windows, not muting, freezing windows. Everyone's talking all at once. Please, people read their PowerPoints. Oh, okay. You know what? It looks like you guys are commenting in questions instead of chat. I'll take a look at what you have in the questions area, but pull down to chat. Oh, I got a bunch of them down there now. Okay. I'm hearing people not using mute. Okay, general rule of thumb, folks, you gotta have everybody on mute except the person talking. What happens when you don't have mute is that one person's got their back, they've got their sound on, and the minute they pick up their drink to have a drink and then place it down and it makes any noise, or they touch their pen or they touch their paper, immediately the screen goes to them. So everybody's got to use mute. Freezing windows. I wish I could tell you that we could solve that problem. That is a technology problem. Now, if you're the person doing the hosting, make sure you've got a super good connection. But for other people, this is a technology issue and you're not going to be able to control that, unfortunately. Everybody talking at once. This is where the raise your hand comes in so valuable. Jen told you just a moment ago that you want to click that raise your hand. That allows the person in charge of the meeting, just like in a real meeting, to be able to call on one person to answer. The person, like in my role right now, I can actually click and unmute one person, or I can click and unmute several people, or I can have invited, for instance, right now, Eric Herdman is on the webinar right now. And a lot of you know Eric from some of the sessions that he's done for a lot of your ABC chapters on leadership or productivity. And if I wanted to, I could click on him and his face would show here and we could have a conversation between the two of us that both of you could watch. So it's almost like a panel because he's considered a panelist. Gemini could do the same thing. So you want to have that opportunity and make sure that you're using that just like you would in a room to call on people and yet keeping the noise down. People reading their PowerPoint. Yeah, well, Michelle, I'm laughing because you have been in a dozen sessions with me, so you know I'm going to say you shouldn't have to read your PowerPoint, and there shouldn't be so much information that other people have to work to read your PowerPoint. So here's a tip for everybody. As we're going through today, pay attention to the PowerPoint, how many words there are on it, and how I use that. And learn from what I do well, and learn from what I don't do well, because you might find some things that you think, ooh, I don't like this one. That's all right. As long as you're learning, you're on the right track there. Somebody said they don't see the chat feature. It is on my control panel. I have questions. Then the next one down is polls, which you might not have. And the next one down is chat. So even if you don't see, it looks like you have a questions and chat. Okay, go ahead and go there. Not a problem at all. That's where I'm going to go to see. So we all have pet peeves when it comes to webinars. And just a case in point, the longer we do webinars, the more you're going to have. Just like if I opened this up and said, what are your pet peeves about meetings? You guys would have a long list of them. So just know the more you do these, the better you'll get at them. But the more used to webinars we get, video conferencing like this, the more pet peeves you're going to have. So control what you can. And again, because we're dealing with technology, you know how that goes. Sometimes we simply can't do a lot with what we have there. So let's talk about this particular session. You're going to look at the 4 Ps of taking your training to a virtual level. One is the planning. What's your real goal for the training process? Then you're going to get an opportunity to think about performance. You're going to learn about promoting. This is going to be a short version because even though it's such a really important thing, one of the things that I do with Eric, he is one of my cohorts, as I mentioned, we do a program called Putting Cheeks in Your Seats. And one of the things that we know is when it comes to webinars, the strategies that you use to promote this are going to be a little bit different than what you work with to put cheeks in the seats in a real classroom. So we do a full program on nothing but that, where we support you folks to make sure that you not only are doing a strong webinar, but you get people to that webinar. And it's a full program, not a training program. It's a strategy program where we work with you hand in hand to make sure that that happens. And then we're going to talk about the post event, because quite frankly, this is the one that I think we lose the most opportunity. We stop the webinar and then it's over. Now, Jen talked about part of their post program, which is post-event promotion, which is actually posting it on your national connection. So you're going to have access to that. But there are a lot of other things we can do. So let's make sure that you guys get an opportunity to take advantage of that. Let's talk planning. When it comes to planning, you want to be thinking about your planning in terms of the goals that you're setting, the software you use, the topics you choose, and the host, because all of those things are really critical. So let's talk about each of those. First, the goals. when it comes to the webinar, you want to ask yourself what your real purpose is. Are you having a meeting where you want brainstorming and you're just collecting ideas and you want input from everyone? Because that particular type of meeting is going to look very different than this. This particular type of webinar is an opportunity to share information. So you'll see a lot of information going out. That's a lot of Laurie talking. Some of you sharing with me, but a lot of Laurie talking because we're trying to share information. Now that's very different than overall training. See, what we know is that training as a whole is a combination of knowledge and skills. That's what makes up training. So today is about knowledge. You're going to get a lot of information. We're going to throw it at you, get a lot of information, but you're not going to get a lot of skill. Now the difference here is this. When you think about driver's ed, okay, there's a written test and then there's the driver test. Now I know a lot of people who will study and study and study, and they'll have a lot of knowledge and they can pass that driver's test in terms of the written part, because they know the information, 6 feet versus 8 feet, 45 miles an hour, 25 miles an hour, 75 miles an hour, whatever it is, they know all the answers. And they get the one right that says, I should parallel park. But you put them in a car and they do not have the skills to parallel park. So there's a huge difference between knowledge and skill. And sometimes your goal in training is to give knowledge. Here's all the information, the knowledge. Sometimes your goal is to give skill, which means that you need to have them practice. They need their hands on. It's very tough to learn how to change a tire by reading a book. Instead, you got to get down and change that tire. So a lot of the training that you guys do might be in the area of knowledge. Now, even in the area of knowledge, even though you're pushing a lot of information out, you also want some interaction because they want to be involved, much like the way you folks have already been involved in chat. You can do through this entire piece. Don't wait for me to ask you to put things in chat. Feel free to do that. Just add comments the way you would in a live environment. And you want to, as the instructor or have your instructors, make sure they're inviting people all the time. Share so that it's not just a talking head. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're both sending a lot of information out, but you're open to receiving information as well. But skill is different. You're not going to learn a lot of skills simply by watching me. You learn skills, you master skills by doing it. So if you're teaching someone in any of your technical training, how to weld, how to build, how to paint, how to drywall, whatever it is, how to run electricity, how to test something, all of these things are skills. And these are the kind of things that you can also use training for to get that full all-encompassing training. Think about YouTube. If you were going to go onto YouTube to learn how to change a tire, they would show you how to change the tire. They would set it up in such a way that you could watch the video and try it, watch it and try it, watch it and try it. So you really want to have a good handle on what is my true goal for this type of training, because you're going to need maybe different software. You're certainly going to want to set it up differently. You might need a different setting. There are a lot of things that you want different. So be very clear for yourself on what your goal is for this particular training session before you choose a lot of your other things. Okay. You also want to look at software. Now, this is an opportunity for you guys to weigh in on software. So we're going to take a look at a poll here, and I'm going to put the poll up here and ask you, what kind of software are you using currently for your webinars? Take just a minute here and vote. You can select one or more. Just click on there and tell us how many, what software are you currently using for your webinars? And also, while you're doing that, run back into the chat or the question area and tell us if you like it or don't like it and what you like or don't like about it. So some of you might be using Zoom, but you might have some concerns about the security issues that they're talking about. In fact, so far, I'm looking at the poll in progress, and 92% of you are using Zoom so far. That's a lot of you. They do have a security issue. They do have some workarounds, and they have made some upgrades. So I don't mean to raise a red flag with there, but it's something to just be aware of. A lot of GoToMeetings, a few of the WebEx, and very few of the Microsoft Teams, but it is there, and we've got some others. Again, if you have an opinion about one of the pieces or one of the software programs that you're using, go ahead and put that in the chat so that we can see it, or in the chat question area, and let's see what you guys have to say. So if you use GoToMeetings and you like it, you use WebEx and you like it, go ahead and put that in there. But if you don't like it, tell us why. This is an opportunity for you to tell other people and to recommend to other people, your peers, what's working and what's not working. So let's see what you guys have there. Would love to see some responses in the chat area about what you like or don't like, or in the questions and chat area. It sounds like you have a question/chat. So what do you like or not like about your software? When you write something in the chats or the questions, yeah, I'm getting, let's see, I'm getting WebEx feels antiquated. You know what, I used to feel that way. I did one for a client just the other day and it wasn't too bad. They've got some updated stuff there, Jennifer. So maybe talk to your sales rep about that and find out what's new and learn how to use it, because that's a big thing, is that we don't know really how to use it. A lot of people like the Zoom. I'll tell you what, Zoom is so user friendly, but again, that's one of their challenges. Oh, I like what you said here, Marianne. You like it because the majority of the people are comfortable using it. That is a huge part of it. Folks, you'll notice that the first thing Jen did when we signed on this morning is she worked to get you guys comfortable with your control panel so you knew where things were. Then I took another minute to do that because it's going to take a while before people get used to some of the buttons that they need to push, and that's an important part. So make sure that you're getting people comfortable. You may have to go back and remind them. Just because you're on this webinar doesn't mean that you're going to be ready for Friday's webinar. Eric Herdman is doing a program on leading in uncertain times on Friday morning for ABC, one just like this. And even though you were here this morning, you might forget which buttons to push on Friday. So you can bet he'll remind you, here's where to go to find them. And until we get really comfortable with this, we're probably going to have several people who need, or entire groups that need reminding. Okay, let's take a look, and we're going to close the poll. And did it show the poll? Here we go, share the results. And you guys can see what other people are doing. 81% of you using Zoom. That's a lot of us. Again, make sure that you go back, take a look at what we need to in terms of the security issues, so that you can make sure that if you are sharing information that does need to be secure, you can. I suspect that a lot of you are doing meetings that don't need to be secure. This one might be an example. Well, this is good information. You're not going to be sharing banking numbers. You're not going to be sharing member names or information. So probably not an issue. This one probably could be, used in Zoom. But others of you might be having staff meetings and other situations where you don't want information shared, or maybe you have vendors, their suppliers, subs that don't want to share information, companies, members. Make sure that you're using something maybe a little more secure. Make sure you're at least taking the steps. GoToMeeting is popular. This is not a bad program. Cisco, WebEx, Microsoft Teams. Very few using the Microsoft Teams and the WebEx, it looks like. And then we've got a few on other. There are some that, oh, I love that you said this, John. You said you're using Loop Up. It's not one I've even heard of, so that's good to know. Loop Up, L-O-O-P-U-P, Loop Up, and he said they have great customer service. Boy, I think that is worth its weight in gold these days, especially if you're not a technology person. So take advantage of that. That's great. You might continue to look in the chat and the questions area and see if people are using other programs that you're not familiar with, and maybe reach out to them either on chat or reach out to them with your phone or email and find out what they know about them. The one that you choose, don't get caught up in using the same platform every time if it doesn't do the job for you. If you need an opportunity to do breakout rooms, for instance. In fact, if you take a look at this next slide, you'll notice that these are some of the features that you can find depending on the software that you're using. And some of these are fantastic when it comes to engaging and really getting involvement and interaction with your audience. Group Q&A. Not just the Q&A here where you write a question, but group Q&A, group discussions. I did a seminar not long ago and it had a huge bunch, and we wanted to make sure that a lot of people were sharing ideas amongst themselves. So what they did was they were put into breakout rooms. And in those breakout rooms, they were assigned, okay, you guys talk about this, and the other team's going to talk about this, and the next one's going to talk about this, just like if you were in a real room. And then you send them in the breakout rooms, and they're only in there with whomever you've assigned them. So I go through and I check here, these 4 people are going to be in this room, and these 4 people are going to be in this room, these 4 in this room. And you can choose for any reason, just like in a real room. You can hand pick who goes in the advertising area and who goes in the succession planning committee, or you can just number them off and send them to their rooms. Then you give them something to talk about, and then you ask them all to report out in the larger group. It's a fantastic tool that makes people feel like they're interacting, they're gaining ideas from other people, they're reporting out. So they, some people like that moment in the sun, let them do that, but everybody's getting the capital of everyone's thought and everyone's ideas. That is a fantastic one. You'll also notice listed here the whiteboard. There are some programs that do not have a digital whiteboard, but you can use a real whiteboard as well. I could put a whiteboard behind me and with a good marker, and that's critical. You know how some of those whiteboard markers you can barely see? No, you need a really good whiteboard marker. I can stand here and I can write on a whiteboard and folks can see it. And a lot of people like that interaction. There are some programs, I know Adobe Connect has it, Microsoft Teams has it, Zoom has the capability of using an actual digital whiteboard. And you would click on a button in your control panel and it just comes up like a white screen. And then what people do is they just click over, just like you're doing in chat, they just click and type whatever they want to write. So by the end of it, I've got a whiteboard, it looks like a PowerPoint slide, that everyone has contributed their ideas onto that PowerPoint slide when I ask a question like, what are your pet peeves? So it's an option outside of chat, but it's a very visual option. And for this kind of a medium, you want visual. The polling, the breakout rooms, that kind of thing, you want these available to you so that you can get some interaction. In fact, which webinar tools are you guys typically using? We're going to do another poll really quickly and just figure out what are you currently using to engage your audience to make sure that they're really involved. Take a look there. Let's see what you guys get. I'll watch your responses here. A lot of people are using the polling. Polling is so easy. A lot of videos are out there. Nobody, oh, we do have a couple that are using the breakout rooms and the digital whiteboards. Attachments with that, what I meant for the question there, you guys, was, are you doing a workbook where they can print it off before the session and take notes during the session? Or like we're doing today, we're doing I'll call it a leave behind. That would typically be something you'd pick up or use in the room or just look at as a brochure in the room if we were real. But in this case, it's a matter of, you can download it after the program so that you've got it as a guideline for you. It's a guidebook for you. A lot of responses. Go ahead and go in there. A lot of polling. That's good to hear, you guys, because the research says that when they measure attendee attendance, paying attention, they find that they see a 27% increase in attention when people are polling. You guys, this is a medium where it is so easy, and some of you may have done it already, where you sit down and you walk away and get a cup of coffee and you never come back. Or you walk away and take care of the dog, or your kid walks in the back of the room, or whatever it is, you're distracted in the home environment differently than you might be in an office environment. And with that, people can lose attention very, very quickly. So let's close the poll and take a look at the results so you can see that. What research says is when you are polling, people are more likely to pay attention. In fact, anytime you use any of these tools, people are more likely to pay attention. Whether you're asking them to make a conversation in the chat box, ask questions, raise your hand if you have a question, go to a breakout room. All of these are things that will help the interaction with your audience and prevent them from getting up, leaving, getting a cup of coffee, and then coming back. And that's what you're looking for. They're looking for the value in the interaction and the engagement so that they can get the information, and when possible, or when they can also get the skills and the practice from you. So I'm glad to see you guys are using that. This is going to be somewhat driven by your goals, but it's also going to be driven by your software. Some of your software does not have these capabilities. So as you're choosing your software, be sure to ask about these, and then also make sure that as you do that, you're thinking about who your person is, your host is, and how they're using this. So let's talk about the host with the most. Your goal is to find someone who is both entertaining and educational. So that means your audience wants to be, well, edutainment. They want to be educated and they want to be entertained. They have a very low attention span, so you want to make sure that you're getting that. You're getting them the attention, and look for someone who's certified. I know that I've gone through several certification programs to make sure that I know how to use several platforms so that you're getting the best of the best. If you have someone who suggests, oh, I can do a webinar, I'll just do it from my phone, folks, hang up. This is not the right format. Or get them trained, or get someone like Jen, who is in the background, who is helping to make sure that they're utilizing the techniques. You know as well as I do that when it comes to training, the person at the front of the room makes a huge difference. You can have 7 different training programs with the same title, but the huge difference is that person who's in the front of the room. So make sure that you have a host that has the certification, the ability, the entertainment value if you need that, the industry knowledge for you guys. You're a unique industry. Make sure you have someone who's got a bunch of construction clients on their roster, who has experience with some of you folks. Make sure that you're thinking about, you know, what are they doing on that screen? What does their face look like? What does the interaction look like? One of the things you'll notice is, and we see this in technical training. Oh, I'm just rolling my eyes here. In technical training, you'll see the person who is sharing information and they read their slides, or they shut their camera off completely. Think about it, folks. In a real live environment, people spend more time looking at you than they do the slides, than they do anything else in the room. So in a virtual environment, you want the same experience, that eye-to-eye contact, being able to see the person who's teaching. You'll also notice as a host, you'll notice that my hands are up here because people want to know that you're real. And it's pretty dry to look at a host who never moves, even if they're looking at the camera all the time. So that means making sure that you're using your hands, using some gestures with meaning, and bringing people in with that, because people want to see that. Don't be afraid to use props. If you've got something to show them, use props. Make sure that you're thinking about all of these pieces as you're choosing who's going to be getting in front of that room and hosting this or being the instructor. Here's a download for you. Eric, if you would be so good as to put this in the chat, I'd sure appreciate it. If you link this in the chat, this is a guide to how to choose your virtual instructors. So Eric will put the link in your chat box. You guys can link it down there and download it. It takes you to a web page and you can download it as a PDF. It'll be available to you now, but it'll also be available to you after. So take advantage of that link. It gives you 8 things to think about in choosing someone to actually do your instruction for this. Make sure you're thinking about your topics. Okay, there are some topics that are a lot hotter than others. When it comes to hot topics, people want a couple of things. They want how-tos. They want trends. And take a look at this third one, experience more than anything else, more than theoretical. While you guys are interested in the fact that there's significantly more engagement, you're probably more interested in the fact that you get to be engaged. You get to add questions. You get to ask questions and make comments. okay? So make sure that you're making this an experience. Now that means that you have to think about things like where you are and what you're doing. So for instance, in the performance, you're encouraged to use things live as opposed to recorded. Now you can do recorded, and where you're going to use recorded more than anything else probably is in terms of, for instance, this one. Jen's going to put this on National Connections and you guys will have access to that. So even though you're not a part of the conversation and the engagement there, you still get the live performance. People tend to prefer live as opposed to the recorded, the playback. But you do want access to that playback, but people do prefer the live. So as opposed to automatically going to playback, there are some advantages, but as opposed to going there initially, you want to choose for live, especially in a training environment. You want to make sure that the person who's doing this has good sound equipment. I don't know if you can see, but I've got my boom microphone here. You guys, these don't cost, they can be costly. You got to be careful, but you want to make sure that you've got decent sound. We've all been to the seminar, the webinar, that looks more like the person is a hostage than a broadcaster. Now that's my background is in broadcasting. So I'm familiar with sound equipment and how to choose mine. And I think I did a pretty good job of that. But you want to have sound that sounds like it's really good quality. Make sure you're taking advantage of that. Invest in the right quality and make sure that your person has the right quality. Again, if they're planning to use their phone, probably not the best quality in terms of sound. Make sure you've got an external microphone. It will make a difference. The reason I recommend this is your reputation is on the line. ABC has a reputation for valued and quality education programs. Don't lose it because you changed the medium. Don't lose it because you've got some guy sitting in an office where the sound is bouncing off of the walls and it sounds like they're in a grain bin, and then the quality is so bad and the lighting is so bad that it looks, you know, like a hostage video. Don't do that. Don't take that. Don't let that cost against your value for what you bring for ABC. So your reputation is at stake for this. Make sure you've got decent sound quality. Make sure you've got decent light. Natural light is your best bet. Now today I'm not in natural light, and what I am in is I have a natural light. I have a light ring and it is specifically natural light. If I shut that off, I would turn yellow, sort of that yellowish orange kind of a background, because if you've got fluorescent lights, or if you've just got the lights from your living room and lights in your office, even your home office, a lot of people will turn very, very orange. So instead, you want to make sure that the light bulbs you're using are natural light, because it can make all the difference in the world in what people see. So make sure you're doing that. Also think about your setting. I'm very proud in the top right-hand corner, one of my clients built that building. It is a children's museum that is in Indianapolis, and it is spectacular. And if they were doing a webinar on anything, quite frankly, for that organization where they wanted to maybe teach a client something or impress upon a client something, or maybe in this day and age, maybe they're doing a new business pitch, it would not be unheard of or even inappropriate for them to actually do it from the front of that museum. They've got that huge dinosaur out there. So imagine them doing their webinar with that in the background, one of their buildings in the background. I was invited to do a TED Talk to talk about the suicide rate that is so incredibly high, specifically in agriculture, because I do a lot of work in agriculture as well as in construction. And instead of doing my videotape in an office like this, which I could have, or I could have stood up on a stage and showed them, look, I look good on a stage, just like TED Talk. I could have put a red rug down. I could have worn red to show them how great I look in red, all those things. Instead, what I did was I went out to a field, and I stood in a field here in Virginia, and it was right next to a farmer's market. So I did my entire webinar, if you will, on suicide in the world of agriculture in an agricultural environment. The reason I mention this is because your training, you want to make sure that you're thinking about it much past sitting in an office. You don't have to do training in an office. Remember those days where you hope the teacher would say, let's go outside, or maybe you went on a field trip. Think about your webinar as a video that happens to be live. If you are going to do a webinar on cooking, you would not do it where I'm sitting. Now, it's appropriate for what I'm doing today because I'm in an education mode, I'm in a professional mode. So, I got my best-selling book behind me and I'm sitting in an office environment and I'm dressed office. But if you were learning how to cook, wouldn't you rather the person be in the kitchen? Wouldn't you rather they had a few props in front of them to show you? Wouldn't you rather it be a further view so you could see the entire environment behind them? So think about your training as being a live video, a YouTube video, but you're doing it live. So you're interacting with the audience, you're showing them things, you're using the props, all of those pieces. People are looking for an experience. They're not just looking for information to be thrown at them. So make sure that you're considering that as you do this, okay? A couple of other things. Just a quick look at A Bridge Too Far. Now, this is not me and it's not even one of my friends, so I won't even apologize to a friend, but take a look at your angles. Is your camera down here? Is your camera up here? Is your camera eye level? You want to be at eye level and you want to be looking at your camera. If you look at my face right now, I'll show you a couple of options here. Right now, I'm looking at the camera. Right now, I'm looking at my PowerPoint. And you see, this is not terribly engaging. So when you're doing this, you want to make sure that you're looking at the camera, not at you. It's really easy to look at your picture. Now, I like to have my picture where I can see it, so I want to make sure that I have it written on myself with a marker or some silly thing. But you want to make sure that when you're talking to your audience, you're looking at that camera. So think about that for your performance. The goal is to keep their attention. And that means you have to think about the different type of learners, the ones that learn from hearing it, the ones that learn from seeing it, and the ones that learn from touching it or doing the skill. So make sure you've got that. Really ask and insist that your trainers that you put here customize every training program to your audience. What construction looks like in Nebraska is different than it looks like in Vermont, is different than it looks like in Nevada. In fact, we're doing a big leadership training program in Nevada. And one of the things we're learning is that Reno is very different than Vegas. So even within states, you want to customize the training that you're doing based on their experience. And even though I'm just outside of Washington in Northern Virginia, I need to make sure that the comments are specific to the audience that's hearing it. So insist that your trainer is customizing everything, much like they would do in person, and even more because you got to work a little harder to get it here. The goal is the bottom line. In a very in a webinar environment, you don't have a lot of time to just tell long, drawn-out stories, but instead, you want to make sure you're starting with the bottom line up front. The bottom line is you'll get better attention if you. The bottom line is you'll get more done if you. You will increase this if you, and then give them the details around that. Make sure that you're focusing on them. People don't want to know how the computer works. They want to know that the computer works. You want them to be able to tell stories, share case studies, and make sure that they have trend information. So really think about that background and how you can really connect with those members as you're doing the training. Now let's talk promotion, because a huge part of this is putting cheeks in the seats. If you're doing all this and there are no cheeks in the seats, now you're in trouble. Your promotion is so important. Again, about a year ago, I launched a program called Putting Cheeks in the Seats. I've worked in the seminar industry for over 25 years, and there are a lot of things that people are doing where their rooms are completely full. Their webinars are completely full. And there are others who can't seem to pull people into the experience. So we launched a program just a year ago specifically to help chapters, association chapters, put cheeks in the seats. It's not a seminar, it is a strategic partnership that we put together and say, okay, if you hire me to come in, for instance, to do a program like this, then we're going to together, as an obviously an added attraction, we're going to help you put cheeks in the seats. But what we do is we work with you to promote it. We start 8 weeks out, and it is everything from emails to videos and a lot of other things. So let's do this. Let's talk about what you guys are currently using to promote your webinars to get people in here. Let's do this. One more poll here. Which promotional tools are you currently using to get cheeks in the seats? Now, what I didn't put on here are the ones that we know you're all using. You're all using email. You're all using your websites. So we're just going to go in assuming that websites and emails are going to get 100%. Let's go further here. How many of you are using videos? I'd be curious how many of you are doing dedicated emails. This is not on the poll, but you might put it in the question in the chat box. When I say dedicated emails, I mean the only thing in the email is this webinar is coming up, as opposed to here are the 97 things going on at ABC XYZ today or this week, and the webinar is mentioned somewhere amongst everything else, but an individual. Videos. Oh, wow, you guys. I'm getting a 0 on videos. Wow. Eric, I know you're on the line here, and I know you're raising your eyebrows right now going, wow, what an incredible opportunity. Incredible opportunity there, you guys, to be doing videos. A lot of testimonials, glad to hear that. A lot of phone calls, good work on that. That is a lot of work, but you get really good results on your phone calls, no question. Now, the ones that are we're gonna give you just a little more time because we only have about a third of you who have voted, so let's see what else we get there. Not a lot of you answering that you're using speaker teasers or other webinars. Wow, huge opportunity with you folks in terms of really upgrading your ability to put cheeks in the seats. This is really important for you guys. And especially right now when there are just so many webinars to choose from, it's just crazy. It's really important that you guys stand out. So there are a lot of things that you can do. This is just 5 because Jennifer told me I can only put 5 on the poll here. So this is only 5. Wow, I'm gonna give this just another minute to see what you guys are identifying. But again, go in there and vote, and then we will close the poll and show you guys the results. But there are huge opportunities for you guys in the area of videos, obviously, speaker teases, and other webinars. I've already teased for you guys at least one other webinar in this webinar. And some of you have actually written it down. You've actually written down that Eric is going to be on the webinar on Friday for ABC talking about leading in uncertain times. I'll give myself a plug too. Next Friday, so 10 days from now, I'm doing another webinar like this specifically on building morale, because we're in a situation right now where people are in what we call the point of engagement, the stage of engagement. And what that means is they are frustrated, they're afraid, they're angry, they want to blame, and they're not like working at home anymore. This is not the vacation they hoped it would be, or they're afraid going to work. They don't like the social distancing, or they feel like they're not protected. There's a lot of morale issues going on, and in construction, we have an issue with it. Excuse me, construction has an issue with morale sometimes. And so we need to address that. So that's going to be next Friday. Okay, let's close this and take a look at what everybody said. Look at this. Only 6% of you are using videos to promote webinars. This is a video medium. This is a huge opportunity. You guys have some real growing to do to use videos. Eric and I use videos in a lot of different ways. We actually put videos in, and some of you have probably received some of my videos. After I do a program for ABC in a chapter, what I do is a quick video, like 30 seconds, maybe a minute, and I send it all out to everybody who was in the seminar that day. And it talks about whatever. It might talk about a review of the webinar we just did, or maybe it'll be a, here are some tips for follow-up, or you've tried some things, here's something else you can do. So videos are huge right now. You want to take advantage of that. Talk to me about how you can do that. Testimonials, huge. You guys, the #1 reason people join the ABC is to network with others. So that means they're listening to others, they're looking for business with others, they want connections with others. Make sure that you're using that. People want to hear from people like themselves. So after you do a webinar, you want to get someone on the phone and you want to get them to tell you what's the most important thing you learned and how are you going to use it. And then use that information in all of your promotion pieces, because they want to know that someone like them found your webinar valuable. And that's going to bring people in. Phone calls, speaker teases. Speaker teases are when I go out. I did one for ABC National last year, for instance, but I do them a lot. But for them, what I did was I got on just on my phone. I stood outside in the natural light and I said, hey, everybody, it's Laurie Richards. I look forward to seeing you in Long Beach at ABC National Meeting. In one of the sessions, you're going to learn this, this, and this. It's like a 30-second video, but they're able to put that on their or on their website. They're able to send it out in emails. They're able to put it in any kind of promotional, put a link in any kind of promotional material. So now they've got a speaker tease. Or I can do one where I tell you, here are the 4 things you're going to learn in this. And it actually is a quote from me as opposed to something that a copywriter wrote. So take advantage of speaker teases. They're incredibly powerful. Those and testimonials are the 2 that you guys are not taking advantage of that you want to and will have the greatest impact. Webinars, other webinars, it's just an easy fit for you're here, why not just talk about it? Another thing you want to make sure that you understand is that you want to promote extra the week before and recognize that over 27%, statistically over 27% of your registrants will register within 24 hours of your seminar. So some of you who are on here right now, you maybe didn't even register, you just showed up, or you registered as late as maybe yesterday morning. So within 24 hours, you want to make sure that you're taking advantage. Now on the other side of it, you also want to take advantage of the opportunity to promote within 24 to 48 hours after. That's the other really powerful place to hit the people who are in the seminar and talk to them or get them to come to the next webinar. So get them right after one event, get them into the next event, or at least talk about it because they'll still be fresh on their mind. Make sure you take advantage of that follow-up promotion. Again, 24 to 48 hours. Be sure to tell them thank you, especially in this environment where people are a little afraid. Acknowledge that you know this takes time out of the day. You know they have other things that are really urgent, really important, they need to be taken care of, and you hope they get some real value out of that. Make sure that you're repurposing this. What kinds of things? Put in chat, if you will. What kinds of things, how are you repurposing your webinars? Throw some things in the chat area and tell us, how are you repurposing your webinars? Jen's doing it in the National Connections. Eric and I are both going to do it when we do our webinars. You're going to find this one posted on my web page, posted on my YouTube page, so I'll be able to use that. Turning content into blog posts, that's great. Good job, Michelle. Turning them into blog posts, that's great. Make sure you're including links in emails that you send out. You've got it posted on your coronavirus page. Good job, because that's going to be a very busy page for a lot of people. You might want to put it under your signature line. If you're an ABC member, click here. If you're interested in this, click here. If you want more information about this, click here. So even some sort of a link in your signature line on your emails. Make sure you're finding the opportunity to repurpose, okay? This has been a lot of information. You guys have contributed so much, and I appreciate that. So let's open the floor to some of the questions that you guys have. What questions do you have about your situation, about your webinars, that not only would be valuable to you, but other people that are on the call here? Thanks, Christy. What are you wondering about, or what questions do you have? I'm looking at the question area.
Laurie, one question I did see come through was, do you have any suggestions for quality sound equipment?
Yes, I'm a huge fan of Yeti, Y-E-T-I, Yeti. Not terribly expensive, but really good quality. They also make great thermoses. Thank you very much. But it's a different company. But Yeti is very reliable, relatively low quality, but relatively low cost, but high quality, good quality, especially for something like this. You also want to make sure that whenever possible, you've got some sort of a sock around it. You don't want to be in a room where the sound is bouncing off the walls. That means that you might want some egg crates. They call them egg crates. It's just styrofoam. Or you want curtains in your room, or you want a large enough room where it's not echoing. You want to be in a room where you don't have where you don't hear a lot of the traffic outside. Right now, what you're going to find is people are very forgiving about things like a dog barking or a police car going by or something like that. People are relatively lenient about that because they know that everybody's in this environment. But I'll tell you what, just watch some of the webinars. Like some of the people I'm fascinated with is the broadcasters, the television news people that have horrible lighting and bad sound equipment. I think of all people, they should have decent lighting and they should have good sound equipment. So don't be that. Don't let people throw away because they've got bad sound quality or bad lighting. Make sure that you've got some good stuff. Let's see. I'm looking to see if there are other questions that you guys have. I don't know if that means I've covered a lot or if you want different information. What other questions might you have that you're wondering about? I'll give you a couple of options here. For your next steps, okay? When it comes to next steps, make sure that you download your virtual instruction brochure. It's got several tips in there. The other thing is that because we're doing this as a webinar and for ABC, because you're a member of ABC and because you're part of this, you can take advantage of a 30-minute strategy session with me. And the way you do that is you might have to take a picture, get a screen capture of this, everybody, or write it down. But if you write this down, you can go to my calendar and get on my calendar for a 30-minute block, excuse me, and you and I can talk specifically about what you're doing in your chapter and what you can do differently to actually raise the bar there. So if that is something, a strategy session to plan your webinars is something that you would like to do or you'd like to take advantage of, make sure that you do that. You'll learn whatever it is, the session is yours. So if you tell me, Laurie, we got to get more cheeks in the seats, that's what you'll talk about. That's what we'll talk about. If you want to talk about how to set it up, the sound equipment, the light equipment, the room that you're in, any of those pieces, the organization, your PowerPoint, any of those pieces, take advantage of that. Just a 30-minute, or I mean, that's what I'll do, is just a 30-minute strategy session with you, but it is complimentary because you're on a program. This is something that we offer to any ABC members who come to any webinars. So take advantage of that. And the other thing that you guys might be interested in that we haven't talked about today, and that is I launched about a month ago a construction leader podcast. And I've already had on a couple of people from ABC, and I've got a couple more in the can that are ready to be published. But I know Eric's been on it, and Ben is going to be on it, Ben Brubeck, to talk about the legislative side and the importance of leaders being involved on the legislative side. But every single episode has specific tips that you guys can share with your members, or invite your members to register so that they're getting some added information, things that will complement some of the leadership programs that you are doing. So go on, you can get it at Apple Podcast or any of the podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. Go on there and subscribe and listen to what's there. And I'm happy to listen to anyone's ideas about who to have on the show, or sponsors. We're looking for sponsors. We've got a couple signed up, but we're always looking for sponsors as well. So let me know what kind of questions you guys have. It doesn't look like there are any more in here, but if you have other questions, reach out, get on my calendar. Let's do a 30-minute strategy session and get you guys up and running during this so important time.
Laurie, I do see one more question from Carla.
Okay.
Do you have suggestions for good instructors that need the technology training to continue change their training medium?
Tell me one more time, Jen, because I think there were several pieces in there. I want to make sure I get a good answer for them. Do I know some instructors?
Do you have suggestions for good instructors? So I guess they already have good instructors that need the technology training to continue change their training medium.
Okay, the first thing that I will say is earlier we talked about the importance, or you saw the importance of having certification. Jen and I'm certified. So the reason I say that is because there are people who don't even come in with the experience that I have, and I've got some decent experience. But Jen and I were on the phone for almost an hour yesterday just making sure that we had this put together, and we spent another 15 minutes this morning trying to make sure that all the technology was where it needed to be. So the reason I say this is because it is a real investment to get trained, but to get certified, but you need an instructor who is. So get that person certified. That means they go to GoToWebinar and they take a course. When I was certified on Adobe Connect and Zoom, I believe it was an 8-hour course. It's not cheap, but it is valuable. Imagine going in without the tools. To me, that's like asking the plumber to run your electricity. Not sure I want to make that kind of an investment. Not sure I want to, get my plumber ready to do that. But you do need somebody who knows how to use this. So get them, get them going, get them certified, get them to take classes. But the place they would go for the certification is typically going to be from the maker. So go to Zoom and go through their certification program. That's where I would go with that. It's lengthy, it's costly, but it's worth it. And again, imagine if it took me an hour and a half to get ready for today, imagine what it would take someone who wasn't ready. And if they don't go through the program and then they get in here, imagine what they won't be able to do. So it's something to think about. Let me know and sign up for a strategy session, and I'll help you, guide you along that, and how to decide who should go through it and who shouldn't, and what your role would be within that. Okay. All right, you guys, let me know how I can help. ABC has been a client with us for a long time, and I enjoy working with every one of you. I know a lot of your chapters that I've been out to and visited, and good to see some really familiar names on the board again today. So if there's anything I can do, all you got to do is ask. Again, Friday's webinar that I know about is leading in uncertain times, and then the next Friday I'm doing one on building morale, specifically in the construction industry. So hope to see you on some of those. I know you've got a lot of webinars to choose from, and I appreciate you being here today.
Thanks, Laurie. Have a great
You're so
day, everyone.